The cameras rolled, the red couch glowed under the lights, and Graham Norton leaned in with that trademark smile, eyes twinkling like he knew something Ryan Reynolds didn't. "So Ryan," Graham began, "you've been keeping busy, movies, business ventures, and a little bird told me about something in your personal life recently that's rather interesting." Ryan tilted his head, giving that slow, suspicious grin he often used in interviews. "Interesting how?" he asked, his tone light but edged. Graham chuckled. "Oh, just something that might involve a late-night karaoke session, a questionable choice of song, and a certain celebrity you may or may not have kissed on the cheek." The audience laughed, and Ryan's smile faltered just slightly. "Ah," he said, leaning closer, "I'm gonna stop you right there. Keep your mouth shut." The crowd gasped, half amused, half shocked, and Graham's eyebrows shot up. "Well, that's a first on this show, being told to shut up by the guest. We're off to a flying start." Ryan shook his head, smirking, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. "No, really, Graham. I know where this is going, and while it's cute and all, it's not a story I want making the rounds right now." Graham grinned slyly, clearly enjoying the pushback. "Oh, come on, Ryan. You're one of the most charming men in Hollywood. Surely a little harmless story won't hurt." Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. "It's not harmless when you know the cameras are rolling and the internet exists. Let's not pretend we're just two guys having a pint in the corner of a pub." The audience laughed again, sensing a game between them, but Graham's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, reading the tension. "All right then, we'll put a pin in it," Graham said, but the way he said it made it obvious he wasn't done. "But I have other sources." Ryan tilted his head, almost playfully, but his words had weight. "And I know where you live." The crowd roared with laughter, assuming it was a joke, but the beat Ryan let pass before smiling made it land differently, like there was something real under the banter. Graham decided to shift gears, but only slightly. "Fine, fine. We'll talk about something safer, your new film. You play a man who's charming, quick-witted, always gets the last word," Ryan interjected with a grin. "Typecasting is a real problem, Graham." The room laughed, but Graham added, "Except in the film, there's a moment where your character's secret past comes back to haunt him. And I can't help but think," Ryan cut him off again, leaning in, "you're doing it again." Graham feigned innocence. "Doing what?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Fishing. And you're good at it. But tonight? Not biting." There was an unspoken challenge between them now, both smiling, both knowing the other wouldn't back down easily. Graham chuckled, turning to the audience. "This is why I love Ryan. He's like a locked safe with a very sarcastic security system." Ryan laughed but shot back, "And you're like someone who thinks they can guess the combination by annoying the safe long enough." The crowd loved it, but the slight spark of friction was there. Graham moved to another topic, something about Ryan's Mint Mobile commercials, but the energy in the studio had shifted. It wasn't hostile, but it wasn't entirely comfortable either. Somewhere in the audience, a murmur passed, as if people were wondering what exactly Graham had been about to reveal, and why Ryan had shut it down so quickly. And while they moved on to lighter questions, the air still had that faint electric buzz of a moment that could easily flare up again before the night was over. The audience was still buzzing from that earlier exchange when the second segment began, the lights shifting slightly as Graham steered the conversation back toward what seemed like safer ground, though anyone watching closely could see the glint in his eyes that meant he wasn't entirely done poking at the locked safe that was Ryan Reynolds. "So Ryan," Graham said smoothly, "your new movie, lots of stunts, lots of action. And I heard there was one particular day on set where you, how shall I put this, didn't exactly stick to the script?" Ryan chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Define stick to the script," he said. Graham leaned forward conspiratorially. "Well, according to someone who was there, you improvised an entire scene because, and I quote, you were trying to distract from a certain phone call you just received." Ryan's eyes narrowed just a fraction, his grin still in place. "And who exactly is this someone?" Graham smiled like a cat about to knock something valuable off a table. "A little bird, might even be the same bird from earlier." The audience laughed, sensing the callback, but Ryan's tone shifted subtly. Graham, you're doing that thing again." "What thing?" Graham asked innocently. "The thing where you pretend this is all fun and games, but you're really fishing for something you already half know," Ryan said, his voice still smooth but edged. Graham raised his eyebrows. "Isn't that my job?" Ryan leaned in, elbows on his knees. Not when the thing you're fishing for could actually mess with people who aren't sitting here to defend themselves. The crowd quieted just a touch at that, sensing a line being drawn. Graham, ever the professional, chuckled to lighten the mood. All right. But you have to admit, Ryan, you're making it sound way more intriguing by refusing to talk about it. Good, Ryan said simply, leaning back again. Then we're done. The studio audience roared with laughter at the bluntness, but Graham's smirk didn't fade. You know, I have this image now of you walking around Hollywood with a big red button that says "Do not push," and everyone just itching to push it. Ryan smiled thinly. And I have this image of you walking around with a microphone that's just a ticking time bomb, waiting for the wrong sentence to slip out. The laughter was mixed now, half enjoying the sharp banter, half sensing they might actually be witnessing a genuine clash. Graham quickly tried to pivot to a lighter story about Ryan's kids, but even that landed awkwardly. So your daughter, didn't she recently? Graham began, but Ryan cut in, careful. The audience gasped and then laughed again, unsure whether this was still part of the bit. Graham tilted his head. You're very protective tonight. Ryan shrugged. Always. Some things you joke about, some things you don't. Graham smiled but let that topic drop, moving on to a question about Ryan's aviation gin business. That finally broke some of the tension, with Ryan cracking a joke about accidentally drinking half the product during a taste test. The crowd laughed, but Graham couldn't resist slipping in one last line. See, now that's the kind of confession we like on this show. Ryan smirked. Yeah, because it doesn't get anyone in trouble. The exchange ended with a laugh, but the undercurrent was still there, humming just beneath the friendly surface. People watching at home would feel it, the sense that something was still unresolved, that Graham had a piece of information he was dying to get out, and Ryan was equally determined to keep it locked away. And in that delicate dance between charm and confrontation, it was only a matter of time before one of them took a step too far. The third segment of the show began with a kind of energy that felt almost deceptive. Both Ryan and Graham were smiling, the audience was laughing easily, and it seemed, on the surface, like whatever tension had flickered earlier had been smoothed over during the commercial break. Graham opened with a playful segue. Now Ryan, before we get into our final chat of the evening, I have to say, you've been remarkably good at dodging my questions tonight. Honestly, I feel like I've been interviewing a very charming brick wall. The crowd laughed, and Ryan leaned forward, smirking. That's fine, Graham. I'd rather be a charming brick wall than a charming demolition crew knocking down someone's privacy. The audience gave an "oh," and Graham chuckled, shaking his head. You see, the thing is, I've built my career on little nuggets of information, Ryan. And tonight, I happen to have one that, don't, Ryan said suddenly, his voice cutting through the room just enough to pull everyone's attention in. I mean it. Graham paused, still smiling but clearly testing the air. But it's good. It's funny. And I promise it won't, Graham, Ryan interrupted, leaning in with that mix of calm and firmness that actors sometimes use when they're still in control but drawing a clear boundary. It's one thing to have fun. It's another to take something that's been private for weeks and turn it into a punchline for a cheap laugh. The crowd grew quieter now, sensing this was no longer just playful sparring. Graham, perhaps emboldened by the tension, decided to push anyway. All right then, I'll let the audience decide. Hands up if you want to hear the story. The audience laughed nervously, and several hands shot up, but before the momentum could build, Ryan held up his own hand toward them and said, "You'll regret it if you do." The moment hung in the air, an odd blend of humor and genuine warning. Graham, grinning as if he had just been dared, glanced at his cue cards and then back to Ryan. Okay, fine, maybe I'll just say the headline without the details. Ryan shook his head. The headline is the detail, Graham. Come on, Graham said, it's about a dinner, just a dinner. Ryan cut him off, his tone still even but now heavier. And the dinner was with someone who specifically asked me to keep it off the record. Someone who doesn't want the attention, doesn't need it, and doesn't deserve to be dragged into a late-night gossip session. Graham hesitated, the smile faltering for just a second, but then he shrugged. Fair enough. But you have to admit, it makes you look even more suspicious. Suspicious of what? Ryan asked, laughing now but with that undercurrent still there. Of being a human who respects other people's business? I'll plead guilty. The crowd clapped at that, sensing Ryan had landed a solid point, but Graham, perhaps unwilling to lose the moment, reached for a different angle. Alright, then let's talk about something that's already public knowledge. He leaned forward. Last week, you were spotted leaving a certain restaurant at 2 a.m. Ryan immediately put his hand to his face, laughing in disbelief. Are you serious right now? You just said public knowledge like that makes it less of a setup. Graham grinned. I'm just saying the photo looked interesting. Oh yeah, Ryan said, rolling his eyes, because nothing says scandal like two people standing near a valet stand in the freezing cold waiting for a car that was taking way too long to show up. You seem defensive, Graham teased. No, Ryan replied, I seem bored of being made into a tabloid headline by my friend Graham Norton on national television. The crowd erupted in a mix of laughter and gasps, and Graham held up his hands as if surrendering. All right, no more poking. You said that an hour ago, Ryan replied quickly, getting another big laugh from the audience. There was a pause, and for a moment it felt like things might end on that light note, until one of the producers walked briskly across the stage to hand Graham a small piece of paper. The cameras caught the exchange, and the audience went quiet, sensing something unscripted was happening. Graham glanced at the note, his eyebrows shooting up, and then looked back at Ryan with a smirk that could have been either mischief or disbelief. Well, Graham said, this is interesting. Ryan immediately straightened, eyes narrowing. What is it? Graham hesitated, clearly weighing the drama of the moment. It's from someone in the green room, he said slowly, and they claim they know exactly what I've been trying to get you to admit. The crowd reacted with a loud murmur, and Ryan's jaw tensed just slightly. And? Ryan asked. Graham looked at him, then at the audience, and back again. And they say it involves a very famous British singer, a bottle of champagne, and Ryan held up his hand sharply. Graham, don't. The silence was immediate and heavy. Graham's smirk faded, replaced by something more measured, and he folded the note before setting it aside. You're lucky I like you, he said. Ryan smiled thinly. No, I'm lucky I know you well enough to stop you before you cross the line. The audience clapped at the unexpected seriousness, but Graham wasn't done. Well, maybe we'll just let the tabloids do their job then. Ryan shook his head. They'll get it wrong anyway. Graham chuckled, finally relaxing back into his chair. You know, this might be the most tense interview I've ever done that didn't end with someone storming off. Ryan smirked. That's still an option. The crowd laughed loudly, the tension breaking at last. Graham decided to close the segment on a safe note, asking Ryan about an upcoming charity project, which Ryan spoke about passionately, his tone shifting completely to something warm and genuine. The mood in the room softened, but there was still that aftertaste of something unresolved, something that had hovered over the conversation from the moment Ryan first told Graham to keep his mouth shut. As the cameras prepared to cut, Graham leaned over and said quietly, just for Ryan to hear, "One day you'll tell me." And Ryan, without missing a beat, replied, "One day you'll deserve to hear it." The show ended with applause, but social media lit up instantly, clips of the sharp exchanges, theories about the famous British singer, debates over whether it had been real or staged. And in that single evening, without revealing a single concrete detail, Ryan Reynolds and Graham Norton had managed to create one of the most talked about talk show moments of the year.